open source tooling, and standards governance. These are the three things we dedicate ourselves to provide a stable, scalable infrastructure, which basically translates into the BSV blockchain. As I've said before, BSV stands for Bitcoin Satoshi Vision. We consider the BSV blockchain to be the version of Bitcoin that actually follows the Bitcoin white paper to the letter. The association has been granted stewardship of the Bitcoin protocol, the same one that's outlined in the white paper, by no other than Satoshi Nakamoto himself, who we consider to be Dr. Craig Wright. So, as a nonprofit with the aim of stewardship, we could define our mission and vision like this. We think truth is the only way. That's how we're going to improve the world. By building a robust and sustainable record of truth for everyone, we will ultimately achieve the only protocol that enables a universal exchange of value. That is the BSV blockchain. So why are we an association? Well, at this step, I could elaborate on the details of why we went down the road of an association, not a foundation. But essentially, I think a few of these logos represent best the reasons why we chose to go down this route. Look at the Linux Foundation, for example, which stewards to an extent the Linux software, which is also open source, just like the BSV blockchain. The IEEE, who are also present in this fair today. They have a stand right in the middle. They do the same thing for the internet. Same as the W3C Foundation. So at this point, I think I've made my claim fairly clear. The BSV blockchain is the blockchain technology which enables the transformation of data into knowledge, which will actually create a better world. And the association is the governing body that enables it and maintains the infrastructure that effectively is the blockchain. Our role in all of this is to basically ensure the growth and sustainability of BSV blockchain. And as you can see from this very ample chart, we already have a thriving ecosystem. We have companies in a variety of sectors, from e-commerce to commodities, digital payments, marketing, financial services, and so on and so forth.
It states on your screen, breaking COPA versus Wright. Craig Wright, Dr. Craig Wright. Craig Wright's lawyers are preparing a demonstration for the judge, possibly to do with the latex white paper files. Now, you got to keep in mind, we mentioned this like a little over a week ago. Some of you guys pointed this out. And of course, the naysayers from the BTC fan club have pointed out, and again, I'm not trying to make things divisive. You know, there's a lot of members of our community that are here right now. We're not big fans of BSV. I get it. So what comes with the territory? But a lot of them stated, yeah, it's just Craig Wright holding a regular piece of paper. It's no big deal. You know what I mean? Like he's the one who put that on there. Understand, look more into it. We're not going to do deep dive about the whole thing of latex and so on. But it's the underlying, as the saying goes, tech, the watermark, and why that's a big deal. So to see this posted yesterday, I will retweet this. I still think this whole thing in regards to the latex is a big deal. And I want to see what happens with it. So when we get to the point in which we have more info about this, we'll talk about it. But that's not the highlight of tonight. Not at all. What is the highlight of the night comes from this guy, okay? From Crypto Class. And I'll give this guy a follow because definitely deserves it. This lady, not this guy. I apologize. So it states Teranode operating at speeds of 1.1 million TPS. Shout out to our brother Michael Middleton. He was saying that he saw, for instance, I believe when you're at, if you're watching Michael or watching on the recorded, Anarchapulco, that particular event, 2 million TPS, that's just crazy. I mean, nothing comes close to BSV as far as scalability, and that is a fact. I will agree with that statement. blows everything out of the water. But how so? Well, it's this big deal about Teranode, right? So currently speaking, unless you're somebody that's connected or you know something I don't know, which I don't know everything, right? 1.1 million TPS, amazing. Like it says, increasing blockchain use cases for enterprise and government customers. By the way, I understand the whole thing of Tectum, right? Currently boasts the whole thing of being able to do 1 million plus on a was it a roll up of I should say original, but from Bitcoin. Not trying to do a comparison on that, right? But I also want to point out that when it comes to BSV and this whole thing of Teranode, again, we'll have billions and if not trillions for the future, which just sounds nuts. But like it says, increasing blockchain use cases for enterprise and government customers. There is a reference, there is a link to this from CoinGeek, and we know that CoinGeek covers BSV a lot, right? Going more into it, it says that there was a press release that did happen 14 hours ago. So I wanted to give you guys a little something that was newer. I didn't see a lot of content creators talking about it. So I was like, you know what? Let guys like, our brother Gavin and some of these other guys who cover the trial all the time to do their thing, right? But I didn't see a lot of people talking about this. And I thought, well, I'm going to hop on it. Let's talk about it. So BSV Association begins that technical testing of Teranode. Now, we did a deep dive about this before and the significance about it. Like it says, Teranode will allow BSV network to operate speeds upwards of 1.1 million transactions per second, increasing blockchain use cases for enterprise and government customers. Think about that for a second. I'm a big fan of Ripple XRP, Stellar. I cover that stuff all the time. I understand the government connections. Some people point out like, well, especially when it comes to Ripple, all you basically need is like the amount of TPS they have because they're not focused on retail. It's more of, the bank to bank money and so on. And my thing is this, okay, that may very well be true, but wouldn't you want more than enough TPS to get the job done? Wouldn't you want to have a case where if you're going to reach a problem of the future to not be throttled, how about this metaverse in the future? My God, that's going to be huge. May not seem like it's huge now, but it's going to be huge. So CoinGeek covered this, and I wanted to take you to the actual listing, not listing, the page, the article, where you want to call it. And it talks about this. So there's a huge outline, and I don't want to just read verbatim from begin to end. I've gone ahead and dropped it down to this part. Okay. And it says, until now, even leading blockchains have only been able to guarantee stable service at TPS, right? Transactions per second, measured in the tens of thousands. Like, even Hedera. I love Hedera. Okay. It's not it's not a blockchain. It's it's a consensus algorithm, if you will. It's a DLT, but it's not a true, it's a different type of technology, right? It's not technically a blockchain. But even with Hedera, I think we saw reports of 28,000 TPS, give or take. But what stood out for them is, just like Stellar, extremely cheap. And, really pro green, doesn't use like hardly any carbon, all these great things. And, if you compare it to BTC, it's like, oh my gosh, the energy consumption of BTC compared to Hedera is huge. But this is not about Hedera, but I'm giving you an example. And that is this. All these other blockchains do measure TPS in the thousands, and a lot of them are solid, great projects. Don't get me wrong, but again, they can't compare in TPS to BSV. Like nothing touches it. So it says these limits restrict blockchain use to sectors with slower transaction volumes, such as identity and medical data management. And I want you guys to think about this for a second. Some people have pointed out, well, do you really need millions of TPS for medical data? Well, maybe not. But the key thing is not having the problems to worry about if you're going to, prepare for the future. If the future is, guess what? Medical data management will be blanketed across all governmental sectors. Well, then now multiply that towards millions and millions and maybe billions of people. Then you would need like something that it has crazy scalability, right? So High transaction costs have also prevented wider blockchain adoption by enterprise and government customers. Think about that for a second, okay? Let's get to this next part. It says when Dr. Craig S. Wright launched Bitcoin in 2008, his vision was to have unbounded scale with large transactions throughput. Again, think about it. This is why a lot of people who have studied BSV, and I'm not saying I'm an expert because God knows I kind of, heard about this since 2022 when Cool Cat was talking about it all the time, but didn't take it as serious as I did, for instance, until like late last year going into the new year. And I said to myself, my God, this thing is huge. Like, this is just amazing. But it's this whole thing of sticking to the original protocol, right? A true, peer-to-peer cash system with true scalability and large transaction throughput. When you see these forks of it, it's not sticking true to that. And you can see why Craig Wright decided, when he did the offer to Copa, saying, look, you can have your Bitcoin Cash. You can have your, Bitcoin ABC, aka eCash. You can have some of these other ones. I don't know if you mentioned, Bitcoin Gold, but you know what I mean? Like, you can have those. And technically speaking, he wouldn't even have to do that, right? Because we understand that there's royalties that need to be owed. But he wants his baby. He wants the original Bitcoin. He wants maximum scalability. So naturally, if you're the owner or something like that, you understand the greater picture of things, then you want to protect that passion you have to see this thing through. I mean, who wouldn't, right? So that's the way I look at it. And this next part that says the existing Visa credit card network processes about 15 million internet purchases per day worldwide, but Bitcoin can already scale larger than that with existing hardware. Notice how it says Bitcoin. Yeah, Bitcoin. Existing hardware for a fraction of the cost. It never hits a scale ceiling. Say what you want. The other block sizes for the other particular ones that claim that they're Bitcoin, they do have limitations. And we've seen that. I mean, especially, come on, BTC. 7 TPS, give me a break. Oh, we're going to use 7 TPS for cross-border payments. That's a joke. That's an absolute joke. I get the whole thing of a store value. I mean, will BTC still do well? Yeah. But if we're going to talk about transactions per second, it's an absolute joke. And it doesn't matter if you're a BTC maxi or not. I think even those guys, if they're going to be honest about it, realize that. So Teranode, since we're on the subject about it tonight, will realize this promise by enabling masses of transactions on Bitcoin's original protocol. Again, that original protocol, and why that original protocol is why so many people are paying attention. Shout out to our brother, Michael Middleton. Michael Middleton realizes it. He's been on guests on the show, and he is sharing his own testimony through his history of where he's been. We're talking about a guy, like he's mentioned, who got into BTC back in 2013. And remember what, when he was a guest on the show, it said what? From BTC to BSV, a Satoshi millionaire's journey. Because he has seen where this has all come from many, many years ago, over a decade ago, and where he's seen, like, what can happen with BSV? Is that really the true Bitcoin? Yeah. And this is a guy who came from, being probably a big proponent of something like BTC because it worked well for him, right? I like to see more people like that because just like myself, some people said, hey, Max, it's nice to see somebody who is raw XRP and some of these other things recognize BSV and the utility of BSV. My thing is this, of course, because I recognize innovation. And if we're talking about real true innovation, and we studied the white paper, I'm not saying that I studied the white paper of Bitcoin with a magnifying glass. I'm not that guy. But from what I have seen on even my own research and what I've gathered from many people from this community and researchers and so on, it doesn't matter if it's blockchain. It doesn't matter, if it's other innovations from like the late 90s and early 2000s. The key thing is this, and a lot of people use this example, like pets.com. It's the innovators that come out from this. Look what happened to AOL Time Warner. You know what I mean? Are they the top dog? They were back in the early 2000, late 90s, 2000s. Look what happened to them. So I look at BTC as like, that's outdated tech, and that is not being really truly innovative. You know, and some people say, well, yeah, that's still innovation because that's trust. Well, what happens when you do have kind of like a flip of the switch or a narrative change? And Craig Wright does come out not being, as some of the BTC maxis would say, a charlatan. You know, he ends up being the real McCoy, and it's confirmed. Then what? My God, like I've always mentioned on the first BSV video, record high FOMO. If we're going to talk about XRP flip of the switch, 25,000 overnight, shout out to our brother, Will Fix, then I think we should also treat BSV in that same type of light, like at least a $10,000 flip of the switch moment, because yes, the mainstream news would cover it big time because everybody wants to know who the real Satoshi Nakamoto is. So enough about that for a second, okay? I think we should always focus not so much on if Craig Wright is the real McCoy of, Satoshi Nakamoto, but also understand this particular blockchain tech through BSV just blows everything else out of the water. It's the utility of this, right? Like nothing compares. So getting a little bit more down to this, I love this statement. BSV network with the capability of stably, that's a typo, I think, maintaining never before seen transaction volumes. Teranode can support at least 10 times higher transaction volume than both Visa and MasterCard networks combined. I think that's why you see, and I get it, guys, it's not 100% confirmed partnerships, but you have seen Visa and MasterCard, like some of the people that represent them be interviewed and talk about, for instance, BSV. They recognize the tech. They can't continue to embrace old tech when they realize that blockchain distributed ledger technologies is the future. So yes, those, 10 times higher transaction volume than both Visa and MasterCard networks combined. Wouldn't you want to get on the gravy train of what BSV can offer you? And as like it says, while doing so, a fraction of the cost. So for one, it's faster and cheaper. So I want to get down further into this. It mentions that Teranode will enable the BSV blockchain to process vast amounts of data. It will underpin data indexing and broadcast services to powering more private ownership-based internet experiences. Man, excuse me. Too much talking tonight, too much reading. Internet experience based on the papers Dr. Craig Wright published way back when. But this part real quick. I want to share this. Underpinning data indexing. Now, I want to point this out. Okay. I hold the graph. And while the graph is like, some people will be like, man, this is apples and oranges. Hear me out. The graph, which is GRT, has been labeled as the Google of crypto. Why is that? Well, Google is the largest indexing platform. Have you seen the price action in regards to the graph? Oh man, I am more than ecstatic about it. I came into the graph at bottom, and this is not a graph video, but it's a good example. Came into the graph at bottom of crypto winner, like 6.5 cents. So glad I did that. Only regret I have is I didn't buy more. But my little investment, which was like I think $330, is now worth like $1,400. And I'm like super ecstatic about that. I mean, I'll do that all day long. But the point is, the graph labeled as the Google of crypto because Google is the world's largest indexing protocol. Now, that's what you should pay attention to, because for Teranode with BSV to underpin data indexing, again, back to the whole reference of, indexing and broadcast services to more private ownership-based internet experience based on the papers that were published many years ago from Craig Wright, that's big. And like what also says, Teranode will ensure that AI, artificial intelligence applications run properly with verifiable and audible information while seamlessly integrating with Web3 and the IPv6 upgrade. This is where a lot of people state that for the future, maybe not right now, but for the future, this is where, for instance, we're going to be safe with BSV. Um, Even some people that are the naysayers from BTC are so like, well, there's not the trust there. Okay, I get it. If the trust was there, do you think the price of BSV will be where it's at? No. But what is to come? I think when you see statements like this about, AI and the applications to run properly with verifiable and audible information, it says to yourself that this is what the other side is talking about, where, as the saying goes, is this a commodity instead of being a security, right? This meets criteria that everybody wants. Integrating with Web3 and the IPv6 upgrade. Again, we did some of the deep dive in regards to IPv6. And you guys who have been into BSV for a long time and, maybe you're maxis on it or where you want to call it. I don't mean that in a bad way. Understand the bigger picture of why IPv6 is so huge. All right, so listen to this for a second before we get more into this, because there's a lot to get into, and I don't want to get into the whole thread of this, but BSVA, right? BSV Association, if you're wondering what that stands for, will be testing. They are Teranode on a geographically distributed 2 and 3 node cluster spread across North America, Europe, and even Asia over a period of 2 to 6 months. The goal is to push the network to achieve the maximum number of TPS without instability. Now they're doing this, right, over the course of the halving coming up here in April, and all these other crazy things that are happening. Obviously, the COPA trial, right? Just because the COPA trial is going on doesn't mean that BSV is going to stop working on their innovative technology, right? It doesn't work that way. But I like this statement as well. Teranode will ensure that BSV blockchain remains a stable and secure protocol fit for the purpose of demands of modern enterprise use. Never forget that. So no matter what the fudders or BTC maxis want to do and come after, the whole thing of BSV, and I see plenty of people in the comments too. And thank you so much, all you naysayers that comment in the recorded video section in regards to BSV. Thank you. I actually do appreciate it. Why? You're triggering the YouTube algorithm. So by all means, keep commenting, keep pounding your chest to 7 TPS, because you want to know something, it's welcomed. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. It may seem like that, but again, you are triggering that YouTube algorithm, and you're getting BSV even out to a broader base just by doing that. So it is what it is. But yes, purpose for the demands of modern enterprise use. A secure and stable protocol fit for that purpose. That is big. And here's a quote from the director, who is Siggy O'Carson, Teranode director at BSV. He said the testing, because people were wondering about how does this testing go, right? This is the news. He says the testing of Teranode represents our commitment to unlocking the full potential of BSV blockchain. Oh my gosh. It's not, again, guys, about 1 million TPS. It's getting to that point of billions and trillions of TPS. Some people will point out, like, I don't care how big the metaverse gets, or I don't care how big all this stuff gets with health data and all that. We don't need that. Who cares if we don't currently need it? When I hear people state that, it also makes me wonder, are you even researching anything else? Because if you understand limitations and how throttling works on a network, or, any of those things that we mentioned, again, you never want a situation where it's kind of like things aren't flowing right. You know what I mean? Like I kind of look at like back in the days when I was a teacher, okay, which was not that long ago. And that is, you see a bunch of kids playing around in the playground, right? And it's just like a well-oiled machine to a sense, right? Kids playing around the swings, or kids kicking the soccer ball. But where the case be, they're enjoying recess, and it's just all these kids and all these people and even teachers are out there, and we're all doing our things, right? Now, can you imagine that playground? You multiply that by 10. Well, maybe everything still works fine, But the point is, you multiply that by 100 in that same area, you're going to have some problems. You're going to have some breakdowns. You have to expand things, prevent things from happening that won't congest the network. Now, that's a weird visual, but I think it's a good example, right? Scalability means I have to have the same user experience as you and everybody else. And it doesn't matter if it's a playground with 100 kids or 1,000 or 10,000, 100,000, so on. You never want anything to have hiccups, and especially if like gaming. My God, who the heck wants to game it up in Call of Duty or Battlefield or where the heck it is? You know, you're aiming your weapon and you are lagging because your bullets or whatever the case, but you're not reaching the target. As a result, you get pwned, noob. Anyway, you get what I'm saying. The key thing is scalability. So unparalleled scalability, according to him. I don't know if that's a him. I apologize. Anyway, unparalleled scalability, stability, and support for safe and instant transactions. It has the potential to serve as the next generation upgrade to a public blockchain that enables complete enterprise and governmental adoption. Now, I want to state this, and this might piss some people off, and that's just too bad. When we talk about crypto tribalism and meme coins, my God, have you ever seen tribalism before and anything else other than maybe even like it exists in XRP? I guess it exists in everything. I mean, Quant, you have tribalism with Chainlink. BTC, BSV, tribalism. I think it's so silly to see this whole thing of tribalism, right? Because it's like this. It's the tech. You see more people rooting for, well, I don't want to get involved with this because this guy's a charlatan, referring to Craig Wright. Okay. What about the underlying tech? Because when you look more into it and you see that there's actual testers, and this actually has millions, if not billions, and in the future trillions of TPS, you're going to tell me that you're not going to take a chance on this? And here is the truth about all this. The same people that won't take a chance on this because supposedly they're quote unquote like, this is fake Toshi and I don't want to get involved with that, right? Are the same people that be like, I'll stick with my 7 TPS. I'll stick with my supposedly store of value, right? My digital gold, because there's more trust. And in the same breath, behind the scenes, what are they doing? Go out and buy some meme tokens. Now I'm guilty of it. Like I like Byte. I look at it as opportunity. But my thing is this: it's so hypocritical. It is beyond hypocrisy at this point that people would actually do that. But it is true, and they won't admit it. Nobody, for the most part, is going to own up to it. Maybe, I don't know, maybe there's a couple people who will. It doesn't matter. The point is that's going on all day, every day. And it just comes back to the whole thing of this, and that is tribalism for the most part. Now, some people will say, no, it's not just tribalism. I don't want to get involved with something that, like this guy's a fake. And, think about Binance in the past. Didn't want to be involved with Craig Wright because they believe that he is a charlatan and that he's a fraud. And so why be involved with somebody that's a fraud? Okay, I hear you. How many times do people still invest in the fraudsters, I guess you could say, without even knowing it? And there was value there. I'm not justifying that, but I'm just being real. Before they knew who the person was, your scam Bankman frauds, your Do Kwons, and so on. But the point is, all of those still had some sort of value before they tanked. So some people say, well, what happens when, Satoshi is, or Craig Wright's proven to be a fake Toshi? This whole network will crash. I don't think that's the case. Because again, it's the underlying infrastructure. I guess this is where we can agree to disagree. So to deliver the test, BSVA partnered with Aerospike, a recognized industry leader in real-time high performance, no SQL database, to leverage its tech, which has high read and write capabilities. Aerospike's back-end database infrastructure ensures real-time processing of petabytes of data. We'll pause on that for a second. What is a petabyte? Well, here it is. Petabytes, multiple unit byte. A petabyte is a unit of measurement in computers and similar electronic devices. 1 petabyte holds 1,000 terabytes. Wow. That's a lot. Large organizations use petabytes of storage to hold massive amounts of data. What's another organization, if you want to call it an organization, that holds petabytes on file? The Pentagon, right? No pun intended, right? So I want to jump back to this for a second. And basically speaking, like this guy says, Ivan Meyer, probably not pronouncing that right, regional manager, Central Europe at Aerospike, said, it's exciting to be working with the BSV blockchain to enable Teranode platform with the built-in efficiency, scalability need to truly adhere to the Bitcoin protocol while supporting rapidly expanding enterprise blockchain use cases. Can we also state this real quick? This is another example of somebody who is part of enterprise recognizing the utility of Bitcoin, utility of BSV, saying to themselves, it's not like they don't give a crap about, oh, this Satoshi thing. Some people say, well, yeah, they do. This person recognizes the use case and how Teranode will perform. They're betting on innovation instead of a stupid retail narrative. And this last quote, we have every confidence that the performance will deliver or we deliver will be consistently high as the BSV platform scales from gigabytes to petabytes. And that right there should be your juicy takeaway, because the key thing is this. If you have a utility that solves a real problem and will benefit mankind for the future with true innovation, whether you are for this guy or not, or you don't, you just don't like the way he looks because he wears red socks or talks a little funny or, pisses off a few people at the COPA trial, whatever the case be, recognize that it's not about that. It's simply about who recognizes the utility. It is the enterprises that recognize this and so on. And if you understand how big this could be, because, Visa, they can't settle for the status quo. That's all it really is here. Companies, organizations, Visa, MasterCard, so on, not settling for the status quo. So if you have all this big conglomerate that has really nothing to do with retail opinions of, well, what do the BTC people think? Then understand the bigger picture. And I know I keep going on with this, but it's good stuff because it's an update. With Teranode, if you weren't aware of it, BSV will be realizing, reading too much today, an enhancement it has been working towards since 2018. Not giving up on that goal. Dr. Craig Wright, not giving up on, the original protocol of Bitcoin. Hence why he is embracing BSV and the original Bitcoin, because he wants to see this peer-to-peer cash system, as written in the white paper, reach its full potential. But what do we know when it comes to both BSV, just real quick, and even Ripple? This is what I think the things that have the most value is the ones that get suppressed for the most. And I'm gonna make a point on this real quick. How do we know this? Ripple, whether you are just a BSV fanatic, you don't like Ripple or not, I think you can recognize and appreciate this. Ripple was suppressed and still is to a degree by the SEC. They only have a 2/3 victory, right? Imagine where Ripple XRP would be right now if it wasn't suppressed by the SEC. Okay. Now look at BSV. Imagine BSV where it could be right now if you didn't see, to a sense, like this type of narrative, this type of suppression. Okay. What's a third example? JASMY. I know we talked a lot about JASMY earlier, but JASMY is a perfect example of what? Suppression, manipulation. And what do all three of these do? They provide a radical disruptor to the entire industry. Whether it's JASMY with data democratization, personal data lockers, Internet of Things, and so on, or it is BSV with Teranode, or it's Ripple's XRP to provide, on-demand liquidity solution for like, not just central banks, but like even retail banks of the world and so on. Say what you want especially when it comes to XRP, is can you imagine if on-demand liquidity and Ripple would have never been suppressed and it existed during, for instance, 2009, 2010 in the recession when all those banks were being bailed out. Ripple could have provided a solution with on-demand liquidity for that problem. But this is BSV we're talking about. This will be a huge solution to a current status quo problem if you understand the greater picture and you could take your emotions. And I know it seems like I'm kind of being hypocritical myself, kind of getting emotional about it, right? But if you could take your emotions out of it and realize it's not about tribalism, it's simply about the tech. So Teranode BSV, realizing enhancement, has been working towards since 2018. That is so huge. And I thought I would at least share this with some of you guys, because at the end of the day, even like it says, Aerospike, real-time database, back to that quote, just real quick, built for infinite speed, scale, and savings, cloud first, AI ready. It is the only database that delivers the lowest latency with the highest throughput everywhere, all the time. Aerospike helps modernize applications at leading organizations like Adobe, Airtel, Criteo, DBS Bank, Experian, PayPal. PayPal, I'm not a big fan of them anymore. Snap, Sony, Interactive. We just talked about JASMY, right? Obviously, Sony connection. Headquartered in Mountain View, California. Aerospike's office, London. They're all over the place. Why would a director or a bigwig of Aerospike want to take a chance on a charlatan's company? And with that said, even if you're a BTC maxi that wants to come into the comments and drop negative stuff, I welcome it. Again, you are triggering the algorithm. I welcome you. Thank you for doing it. Helps get our program out to a larger base. But I want you all, naysayers, to wrap your head around that. Because last I checked, these guys are recognizing innovation. Why the hell aren't you?